Show.
That's right. It's me. It's Glen E. Coming to you live from my mom's attic, sitting precariously perched on a Cold War era desk chair. So if I fall over, you know what happens. Welcome to everybody on the YouTube channel. We appreciate you tuning in. And we are live on Radio X in Australia. We are live on all of their affiliates in Australia. We are live on Yerg's Radio, Rainbow Radio, Right Talk Radio, and, well, I don't know, some other places too. But if you want to see the video and join the chat, because, well, we just have a great group of chat people, come over and join. Wendell is already here. Hello, Wendell. Welcome, welcome. You hit a button over here, so that stops. And welcome to Chris. Hello, Chris. Welcome, welcome. Glad to see you all. Well, if you followed any news, you would know that, well, over the weekend here in East Tennessee, we suffered a little rocking and rolling and a little shaking ourselves, but it wasn't to the music. We had a storm of a different magnitude, and magnitude was a 4.1 earthquake. So yeah, I wrote it out. I was full of myself.
No, for your information, I have full-size balls.
That's right. I wrote it out, and it wasn't that bad, but it was enough to make me question what the hell is going on. Ginger didn't even actually do anything besides for sit up, and then she just rolled over, so it wasn't that bad. It's 4.1. It shook the bed, shook the ceiling fans. Nothing got knocked off the shelf or walls. I do appreciate there were several of my fans and friends who sent me texts and messages and checked on me, and I appreciate that because, well, you know, we're human. Things happen, but we're alive and well, doing good here in East Tennessee. Let's go ahead and get started off because, man, we have more news than you can shake a stick at, and it's crazy. Some crazy stuff, some normal stuff, and just, well, we'll just start off our normal. You know, let's remind everybody, because I'm making a pitch, because I've noticed the other channels, prepper channels, are following me. They're watching me to see what I do, so I think that's funny. And I've actually heard some of them say some of the exact same things I say. And I don't care. I just hope they like, share, follow, and subscribe. No windows, the Mountain Dew bottles didn't fall off. They didn't even route. It was the ceiling fan pulls that made the most noise. So, yeah, it was really weird. All right, well, we always start off a little happy because, like I was saying to our new followers, please hit that subscribe and thumbs up button, everyone. We are anti-doom and gloom here, where the other preppers post-emergency alert. You're going to die. It's doomsday. The apocalypse is now. The end is near. Well, guess what? They're probably going to do another show today. They're just doing that for what we call clickbait. So, yeah. So we're going to do a little clickbait war back with them and see what happens. But we want to, well, I do like all of them. I'm not friends with any of them personally, but I do follow Steve, Canadian Prepper, the guy in Alabama that's always saying we're going to die. I follow him, and there's a couple of them. And in the New York Prepper, I follow him as well. But even though they put up those, and LG News, follow him, even though they put up the, the signs on YouTube, alert activated, doom and gloom, they schedule a show for the next day. So yeah, they're still with us. So they're just doing a little clickbaitology, so we're going to clickbaitology right back at them. And Chris says his parrot freaked out every time they had a small earthquake. I was hoping, I've got a little outside camera to watch, not really the house or anything, kind of just watch the property. And I was hoping that it would shake enough on the thing it was mounted on to activate it, but it didn't. So I was hoping to have some video to share. All right, so we're going to start off like we usually do. What is today? Well, today would be, well, it depends on what part of the country it is. It's May 12th, Monday. If you're in Australia, well, it's Tuesday morning. Good morning to you all down there. And it is a Buddha's birth today. So they're celebrating, and I'm probably going to say this wrong, so apologize in advance, Vesak Day, Buddha's birth. So that's third day. May 12th is Chronic Fatigue Syndrome Day. That is an actual thing. We did say the day of Vesak. It is the day of Vesak, honor Buddha's birth. and Enlightenment and Death. Fibromyalgia Awareness Day. Hey, welcome, War Dove. I am glad you're here. Please hit that like, follow, share, and subscribe. I think me and you have some things in common. So welcome. And let's see here. What else? It's Fibromyalgia Awareness Day. A lot of people don't really even realize they're suffering from fibromyalgia, but it goes undiagnosed or even misdiagnosed. It's International Awareness Day for chronic immunological and neurological diseases. It's easy for me to say. So it's a movement to raise the awareness about chronic diseases affecting your immune system and your brain. And, well, not just your brain, but your central nervous system. And I suffer from one of those as well. So interesting. International Day of Plant Health. Well, we want to keep all of our plants healthy, unless you're in the UK where they want to darken the skies. All right. International Myalgic Encephalitis Awareness Day. It's a mysterious disease, a global concern, and they want to get to the bottom of it. It's International Nurses Day. Didn't they just have a day? They get like a day a week. I don't know. National Anthony Day. Well, if you know anybody named Anthony, say hello to Anthony. Would it be the same as saying hello to Tony? It's National Hospital Day. Learn about all the important history of National Hospital Day and reasons to prioritize your health. Well, yes, that's true. National Mental Health Provider Appreciation Day. I'll send my therapist a thank you note and tell her thank you for keeping me sane. Oh, I need to share this one with my mom. It's National Nutty Fudge Day. Who doesn't? Actually, is KG in the chat? His mom gave my mom a fudge recipe that is to die for. We grew up eating that one. National Odometer Day. Yes, that's an important day. I don't know why, but it is an important day. It's National Tampon Day. We're about to break the silence and dispel some of the most common menstrual myths. Okay, I'll just leave that there. National Women's Checkup Day. Yes, our ladies need to go get checked up. It's important for their health. And it's National Ya Dig Day. Be yourself and acknowledge growth because you're destined for greatness. Ya dig? Well, we are destined for greatness. All right. Well, Word of, I do appreciate that. And I am hoping that we get some shares and followers and all that good stuff. Of course, I follow you everywhere. So it's Draconith Dragons Day. I don't know if I said that right, but it's the Canadian gamer and it's his birthday. So Drumsy's birthday, whoever Drumsy is, the authentic gamer. George Carlin's birthday. Well, he did create the 7 words you can't say on radio. Tony Hawk's birthday. I wonder, how old is Tony Hawk? I need to check that because that guy is great. Vinny Vinsauce's birthday. Well, he's a YouTube streamer, Twitch star, and a rock superstar. Well, happy birthday to you. Let's see what else we got today. Yes, War Dove, I do hope that you have a great show on Coast to Coast. For those of you all that don't know it, this is my friend Joel, a loyal fan to the show, and he's got a book out. It's a great book. I'll let you just go back and find our show and check it out. And Denise, we dig. He started out doing some of the smaller podcasts. I sent him to some of the others because we like to share guests. And he's going to be on Coast to Coast telling his story and promoting his book and hopefully saying, come on over and find the Sportcat show. All right. So it's National Sapphire Saglu Day. Whatever that is. All right. And we did talk about fibromyalgia. Nutty Fudge Day. KG, if you're in the chat, I'm going to have to get some nutty fudge. National Limerick Day. He'll know what I'm talking about. His mom used to make the fudge, and I had to get my mom to make it. All right. So, of course, I was fat enough. I didn't need it. Today in history, well, British abolishes slave trade. 1789, William Wilberforce makes his first major speak on abolition in the UK House of Commons, reasoning the slave trade morally reprehensible and an issue of natural justice. All right, 1940, Nazi Blitzkrieg and conquest of France begins with German forces crossing the Maois River. 1943, Axis forces in North America surrender. Axis forces in North Africa. I was reading that wrong. I was like, wait a minute, hold on. They were never in North America. All right. 1949, the USSR lifts blockades of West Berlin after US, UK, and allies successfully supply the city during the Berlin airlift. 2002, former U.S. President Jimmy Carter arrives in Cuba for a 5-day visit with Fidel Castro, becoming the first president of the United States in or out of office to visit the island since his Castro revolution in 1959. Now, I wonder if we had as much social media and up your nose media at the moment as we do now, if he would have received as much flack as current president for going and visiting the Rocket Man. 2008 Wenchuan earthquake measuring 7.8 in Sichuan, China, killing over 87,000 and injuring 375,000, leaving homeless 4.8 million. But leaving homeless between 4.8 million and 11 million people. Wow. 1994, Pulp Fiction came out by Quentin Tarantino, starring the great John Travolta, Uma Thurman, and who could forget Samuel Jackson. All right, today in music, track records released Are You Experienced? Album by Jimi Hendrix. That went on to be a great one. 1888, Crouching starts first in track and field by Charles Sherrill of Yale. Okay. All right. Well, there we go. There is that. Let's see what else we can rumble up on today in history. 1593. Whoa, we're going back a day or two. Playwright Thomas Kidd is arrested for libel. He is arrested for libel and subsequently tortured in London. Born in 1558, Kidd was an English playwright, most known for his work, The Spanish Tragedy. After an official decree called for the arrest of authors of lewd and libatious work, Kidd was imprisoned in his home and searched by authorities. During the search, authorities found documents that supposedly denied the eternal deity of Jesus Christ. Branded a heretic, Kidd was tortured for more information regarding these documents, eventually being released. However, he never recovered and died a year later. Today, he is recognized as one of the most important playwrights of the Elizabethan era. Okay, so that was in 1593. I'm gonna ooh shiny here for a minute. London, over the weekend, arrested a retired police officer for a thought crime. Yes, you heard me correct. For a thought crime. He posted a tweet talking about how they should end anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic, and he was promptly hustled by the police. They came to his front door, opened the door, had a warrant, went through all of his stuff, including his, I don't know, it was his daughter's, granddaughter's undergarments and records, before they eventually, after shaking him down, said, "Oh, we're sorry," and let him go and apologized. So from 1593 to 2025, has UK not learned anything? 1820, Florence Nightingale is born. She is the founder of modern nursing in Italy. She was born in Italy and served as a Norse. She served as a Norse. She may have been Norse. She served as a nurse during the Crimea War. I need new glasses. During which she attended to wounded soldiers in Constantinople. Her fame skyrocketed after her methods of sanitation and care led to reduced death rates among wounded soldiers, and her reputation as a skilled nurse popularized the job as a role for women. Wait a minute, there's some good male nurses. She became an icon of the Victorian era and sparked several traditions in her honor, such as the Nightingale Pledge, which is taken by new nurses to this day. Did not know that. And the Florence Nightingale Medal, which is the highest international award a nurse can receive. Did not know that either. International Nurses Day takes place every year on her birthday. Okay, well, that makes sense. They should have the day. Otto Frank is born in 1889. And if you know your history, he was the father of Anne Frank, who survived the Holocaust and later published Anne's Diary. He was born in Frankfurt. And that was a book we all, well, I shouldn't say we all, but most of us read in school. 1932, the Lindbergh baby is found dead. The body of kidnapped Lindbergh, wait a minute, hold on, 1932, did I say that wrong? The body of kidnapped Lindbergh baby is found in New Jersey. Charles Lindbergh Jr., son of Charles Lindbergh, the famed aviator, known for completing the first solo nonstop transatlantic flight, and his wife, Anne Lindbergh, was kidnapped at just 20 months old on March 1st of 1932. The boy was taken out of his nursery in the evening while his parents were at home. The body of Charles Lindbergh Jr. was accidentally found by a truck driver after it had been badly decomposed, burned, and buried. An autopsy concluded that blunt force trauma to the head was the cause of death, an injury which occurred approximately 2 months, I wonder how they determined that, before the body's discovery. A man named Bruno Richo Hauptmann would be arrested and executed for the murder in 1936. 1935, the first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting takes place. I would have thought they had that after the, just drew a total blank, where they did away with all the alcohol in the U.S. 1949, the Soviet Union lifts the blockade of Berlin. All right, so those are the headlines and things that made today an important day in history. And I'm going to add a segment when we get time, but today we just don't have time. And I would like everybody to contribute. I want you to come over and show us your favorite cartoon of the day. Whether it's political, I'll show a political cartoon, or whether it's Charlie Brown. Of the day, it's got to be of the day, or at least a day or two before. You can find us on the Facebook, the Book of Face. We have our own group over there called Sportcat's Daily Gazette. Post it there, and I will bring it up here. It's a segment I want to start doing because I think we need to bring more humor and funny things into the world. And Chris says, 1776, we saw stupidity was a problem with them and did something about it. All right. So there's a slightly unusual atmospheric river event that's going on in the USA. And we'll talk about this more when we get to weather. But if you really looked at this, Annie, and noticed the rain has just been sitting in the Gulf of America, and it's slowly going to make its way up the Atlantic coast into the Northeast, maybe even spinning off some hurricanes, tornadoes up in the New England area. But what's unusual is the airflow, the way it's going. Jet stream over the Gulf of Mexico, they're calling it the Gulf of Mexico, it's the Gulf of America, will likely reach an area it doesn't typically hit, the southeastern United States, which it has, and it is spinning like a cyclonic event. Beginning this weekend into Monday and Tuesday, that's today and tomorrow, widespread rainfall across the region could result in 4 to 6 inches of rain. The National Weather Service said isolated spots could get as much as 12 inches. Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina are forecast to see most of the effects of the atmospheric river. The chances of rain in the area will increase later this week, with the potential for heavy rain Monday and Tuesday, which could result in flooding. The atmospheric river is essentially a concentrated area of water vapor that transports large amounts of water throughout the sky. They usually come from the Gulf of America or the Caribbean and land in the western U.S., but not at this time. California gets a lot of precipitation in the winter from these, said Andrew Hazelton, an associate scientist with the University of Miami, where he works with NOAA. But it is not rare for atmospheric rivers to land in areas outside of California, he said. They typically happen because of the cutoff low, which we saw earlier, or we'll talk about, I guess. According to Hazelton, when the jet stream from the Gulf of America or the Caribbean gets cut off, This cutoff leads to a diversion. It turns the jet stream into a closed-off low-pressure system. Basically, it shunts it down to the bottom and pushes it back up to the left, which creates a small cyclone, basically, where many atmospheric rivers events hit. Straight from east to west, the closed-off low pressure routes back towards the east. Anytime you see a storm going against its normal self, it's always stronger. The southeast-bound event just might help certain areas that have seen recent droughts, according to scientists. We'll talk about that too today. Certain areas in Florida, including central Florida, down towards Miami, really, had a dry winter and are witnessing a drought, but more precipitation in those locations could make up for the harsh cold season. But when you get too much rain in a short period of time, it can lead to flooding and flash flooding, so keep an eye on that. Small creeks and streams will rise, and for areas that are prone to flooding, the same precautions are any others. Remember, turn around, don't drown. We'll talk about this in the weather, but yeah, there's a chance for real severe weather down in the Gulf of America. And this little thing, it got cut off by high coming down here, and it just caused it to spin like a little cyclone, and it stalled, and it's been sitting there, and it's going to slowly move to the northeast. But it's an unusual event for us. So it's caused a lot of rain. Actually could cause as much rain as Hurricane Helene in the southeast. So everybody be on your toes. Turn around, don't drown. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. All right. So millions across 3 states were issued air quality warnings. All right. Well, residents in Ohio, Minnesota, and Texas have been urged to limit outdoor activities as air quality advisories were issued across multiple regions in these 3 states. Officials cited ground level ozone pollution as the cause of these alerts, warning that the conditions may cause health risks, especially to sensitive, including children and elderly, with respiratory or health conditions. And, well, as we can see, this is the Monday morning app map showing where they are exactly. So you have Ohio and up in the, I guess it's northwest Minnesota, and then down in deep south. Well, it's not deep south, but southwest Texas. In Ohio, an air quality advisory for ground level ozone would be in effect until midnight tonight on Monday. And it lists the counties, and it will be unhealthy for sensitive groups. In Minnesota, the Pollution Control Agency issued alerts for the following areas. You can look at Find Your Own County. Air quality was expected to reach levels of unhealthy, mostly sunny skies, warm temperature, and low humidity, which is also going to cause a great fire risk. We'll talk about that. Will create environment favorable for 2 pollutants, volatile organic compounds and nitrogen oxides, to react in the air to produce ground level ozone. The statement read. In addition, it added that the highest ozone levels are expected in the afternoon and early evening when sunlight and temperatures peak. Makes sense. And they're going to say maybe we'll issue more warnings tomorrow. So keep an eye on that. We will talk about that when we get over into that. But throughout the day, just remember, if you're in Minnesota, Ohio, or Texas, today during the late afternoon, your air quality could be horrid. So stay inside. Who keeps changing the things like Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and why? Well, it's like this. The president changed it. I don't know who changed it before. I don't know who exactly names it, but we're America, so we named it the Gulf of America. I don't know, Wendell. Get with the program. As tonight's flower, I think it's actually going to be official in legislation coming up in the near future. Wendell, just let me know. I'm busy with things going on here, but let me know. I'll do it. All right, so this comes to us from the BBC. Tonight, flower moon blooms, and you may notice it looks slightly different. I did not know there was a flower moon. The 2025 flower moon rises tonight, 12 May, about 9 p.m., but this month's full moon may look smaller and perhaps fainter than normal. That's because the May 2025 flower moon is a micromoon, a phenomenon caused by the effect of the moon's orbit around Earth. You'll be able to see tonight's flower moon rise around 9:30 p.m. in the southeast, and it then tracks westward across the sky, settling in the southwest just as dawn breaks. The flower moon won't rise far above the horizon. It's currently in the constellation Libra. Hey, that's my constellation, which never rises very high in the northern hemisphere. If you spot a bright orange star below and to the left of the moon, that's Inertes, the brightest star in the constellation Scorpius, another constellation that doesn't rise very high in the northern hemisphere. Why a flower moon? Well, each full moon of the year has an informal nickname or nicknames. Now, Wendell, I don't know who makes them up. May's full moon is known as a flower moon because it rises during springtime when the flowers are in full bloom. And that's the only reason it is known as flower moon. And it won't look any different to any other moon, full moon of the year, except this month. That's not strictly true because the moon will technically be smaller and fainter than normal because it won't be as close. For those of y'all that ain't paying attention, the moon's going to be further away tonight. Tonight's flower moon is a micro moon, which means it is the smallest full moon you'll see in the night sky. And it's because the Earth's orbit around the Earth isn't a perfect circle. It's more like an elliptical or egg-shaped orbit. As a result, sometimes the moon is further away from the Earth than at other times. When the moon is closest to the Earth, it is known as a perigee. When the moon is furthest away, it is known as apogee. And the 12 May 2025 flower moon is around full apogee, meaning it's the furthest point from Earth is in its orbit. So that's a lot of fancy words for saying the moon's going to look small tonight. It's still full, but it's further away. You can't get there from here. As a result, it's going to look smaller and fainter than usual. You may struggle to notice any other difference. And a fun experiment would be to photograph the moon tonight and capture the same image of the moon of the 3 supermoons occurring later this year. There you go, Wendell. There's a science project for you. Go out and do that for me and report back. Chris says, Wendell will be disappointed to hear that I am introducing my own legislation to rename the moon to Nightlight of America. I was thinking you were going to make a doctor joke there, Chris. So, because we forgot to recognize him today. We still need to do a deep dive into what the hell he did. U.S. halts cattle imports from Mexico, citing fears of flesh-eating maggots. Now, there was a controversy in the Oval Office, I think it was Friday, when a reporter asked maybe it was Saturday, I don't know. When a reporter asked from the UK if we were going to export beef to Europe, and of course Trump replied yes, and then the reporter snapped back, well, we won't take it because your beef is inferior quality to what we have in the UK, prompting a little exchange between the commander-in-chief and I think it was a BBC reporter. However, she wasn't wrong. We'll fact check here that our beef is inferior to the UK beef because we load it with antibiotics and steroids, and they do not in Europe. So, cattle ranchers, take heed. Don't drug your cattle. All right, so U.S. halts cattle import. Why are we importing cattle from Mexico, citing fears of the flesh-eating maggot? Wendell, be careful out in the woods. Concerns over a flesh-eating parasite have led U.S. officials to halt all imports of live cattle, horses, and bison across the southern border. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins made the decision on Sunday, citing the northward spread of the New World screwworm. We could have fun with that word, which has been detected in southern Mexico in the last year. The protection of our animals and safety of our nation's food supply is a national security issue and the utmost of importance, she said in a statement. This is not about politics or punishment of Mexico. Rather, it's about our food and animal safety. Oh, yeah, because once an invasive creature gets here, it's here. New World screwworms are fly larvae that burrow into the wound or mucous membranes of animals, rarely humans, but Wendell, I still want you to be careful. The maggots feast on the flesh and blood of their host with tiny mouth hooks. Left untreated, the parasitic infection can kill full-grown cows within 1 to 2 weeks. I guess they eat it alive, basically. Efforts to get rid of the pests go back many decades. In fact, the U.S. and Mexico were able to eradicate the New World screwworm in the 60s and 70s by releasing hundreds of millions sterile adult flies that would mate with females, ultimately preventing them from laying viable eggs. Isn't that incredible? We have technology that can make that happen, and that was in the 60s and 70s. What can we do now? The strategy helped create a barrier zone that kept the pests from encroaching into the U.S. and Mexico, though cases would still pop up from time to time. In 1976, an outbreak in Texas affected more than 1.4 million cattle and hundreds of thousands of sheep and goats. If such an outbreak were to occur now, it is estimated that it would cost the Texas economy $1.8 billion, according to a USDA analysis. The potential fallout is why agriculture officials are so alarmed that the pest has made its comeback in the last few years. Cases have surged in parts of Central America and are now being detected in some remote farms in Mexico, about 700 miles from the U.S. border. All right, well, as a result, the U.S. has shut down live animal trade on the border. In November, it had been lifted in February, and then U.S.-Mexico agreed to new measures to keep it at bay. But the new ban will continue on a month-by-month basis until a significant window of containment is achieved, according to the USDA. My uncle was one of the ones for the state of Tennessee that used to inspect the cattle before they could be sent out. And, it makes me wonder with them talking about that, didn't we just at the beginning of the year before a new administration come in, kill pretty much all of the chickens in America? So be warned. I'm not trying to throw anything out there. I'm just saying, keep your eyes and ears open. And Chris says, if you see any flies with orange eyes the size of the sun, be careful. Yes. All right, so now we're talking about bird flu. Spikes of bird flu in cats could reach a future pandemic. Oh my. Cats infected with bird flu are falling under the radar when it comes to tracking and managing the virus, and this must change rapidly, scientists warn in a new paper. The emergence of the highly pathogenic avian influenza, which we also know as H5N1 in the U.S., put poultry and dairy farms on higher alert, resulting in calls that are devastating the industry and fears it could transform into a human pandemic. We've seen reports of infections in cats, but new research from the University of Maryland in the U.S. suggests feline cases and the risk of transmission from cats to human is not being taken seriously enough. Is the cat going to be the one that does this in? Bird flu is very deadly to cats, and we urgently need to figure out how widespread the virus is in the cat populations to better assess spillover risks to humans. Airborne infectious diseases researcher Kristen Coleman says. This is particularly crucial in birds in the United States as they're making their springtime migrations, potentially spreading the virus further afield. As summer approaches, we are anticipating cases on farms in the wild to rise again, she adds. Coleman and her co-author, animal scientist Ian Bemis, analyzed peer-reviewed, which means it's been multiply accepted by scientists, published in 2004 and 24, finding 607 reported cases of bird flu infection in cats globally, across 18 countries and 12 species, ranging from house cats to tigers. Well, I don't want to get it from a tiger. There was a story about a lion that ate his owner over the weekend. 302 deaths were associated with the virus. The researchers believe that the lack of monitoring means that these numbers are serious underestimation. They noticed that in 2023, reports of pet cat infections increased drastically. In 2023 and 2024, there was a spike in the number of pet cats infected with and killed by the bird flu. Most cases can be attributed to the deadliest strain of bird flu, which is H5N1, and then they have a couple other names for them, 2, 3, 4, 4B, and whatever, which had 90% case fatality rate, within the data. However, this rate may not reflect the actual risk to deaths of cats if infected, since testing has been limited. Wonder if they're going to come out with a shot. You give your cats distemper shots. Can we give them a bird flu shot? The authors urge authorities, veterinarians, and pet owners to increase surveillance of their kitties. We want to help protect both people and pets, she says. There are no confirmed cases of cat-to-human transmission for this particular strain of bird flu, although in 2016, the outbreak of a different strain among cats in New York City animal shelters did result in a cat-to-human transmission. Human-to-human transmission is yet to be recorded, but researchers are concerned this ability may be only a few genetic mutations away. Nonetheless, she and her fellow co-scientists note that the owners of farm cats, which are free-roaming cats, veterinarians, zookeepers, and animal shelter volunteers may have a higher risk of exposure to bird flu through interspecies transmissions. Hunting is in a cat's nature. A free-range cat can kill around 186 animals each year. Besides, for protecting wildlife and saving on vet bills, this might be another good reason to transition your beloved companion to an indoor lifestyle. My cat Squatch has only been outside twice. Cats become infected from hunting and eating infected wild birds, and mammals are by consuming infected raw pet food or raw cow's milk, including products sold commercially. We've talked about that in the past. They can also catch the virus from other mammals they live alongside of, including cats in the neighborhood and, well, potentially their owners. Our future research will involve studies to determine the prevalence of high pathogenicity, it's going to mean that it spreads, of the bird flu into high-risk cat populations such as dairy barn cats. My uncle, he was a professor at the University of Tennessee, a veterinarian, said that one day what will get the human race will be a disease that transfers easily from humans to animals and back and forth. Let's see. Well, are they going to, Wendell says, are they going to set loose more spade flies? Well, I'm sure that there's probably some scientists working on that right now. All right. So this is a topic that a lot of shows have been hammering, that we're going to see power outages. We're going to see grids down. We're going to see, it's going to be chaos. We're all going to die. Well, we should prepare as preppers for that, but we shouldn't get overly concerned that it's going to happen tomorrow. When America's largest power grid operators warn of growing risks of summer power outages, people pay attention, especially now after witnessing Spain's brief brush with net zero collapse, meaning they had zero electricity, when its failing green energy grid triggered the worst blackout in a generation. All right, so the PGM Interconnection, the largest power grid operator in the United States, issued a warning Friday. By the way, there were several warnings that were issued Friday that people just didn't heed, even one that my fellow prepper podcasters doom and gloom should have caught. I got for you later today. So it is quite concerning. But at any rate, I go on. The extreme heat this summer, which we're about to suffer from in the next few weeks, could collide with record electricity demand, potentially triggering disruptions. Personally, I wish trees would stop falling on my damn house, but that's another story. This season also marks the first time PGM's annual assessment. However, that available generation capacity may fall short of required reserves, an extreme planning scenario that would result in an all-time PJM peak load of more than 166,000 milliwatts, the grid operator warned. It reported that if it expects around 179,200 milliwatts of available generation capacity this summer, along with 7,900 milliwatts of contracted demand response, resources activated during extreme heat when 65 million customers across the service area spanning 13 states and the District of Columbia are setting air conditioning thermostats to the max. The grid operator warned that a perfect storm of retiring fossil fuel plants, Sluggish renewable energy growth and soaring demand could trigger shortages for the very first time. They continue to voice their concerns about the supply and demand imbalance driven by generator retirements and the slow build of new resources in the face of accelerating demand growth. Meanwhile, U.S. power demands continue to increase because of electrification trends that fall under the Powering Up America theme we have laid out for our readers, and they cite it there. You can go to Zero Hedge and find this. According to the build out of massive AI data centers, electric vehicles, and onshoring trends. Earlier this week, Goldman Hodgson's Wayne, I don't know what the hell he is, offered this take on America's power. PJM's warning about potential summer shortfalls is a direct consequence of aggressive net zero and green energy policies, which have destabilized power grids and driven prices higher, particularly in the mid-Atlantic states governed by the far left lawmakers. Let's translate that for a minute. They've regulated the other industries and deemed that we could only have green, and so now we're going to fall behind in our power needs. It's now up to the Trump administration to push for the restoration of reliable fossil fuel generation to reestablish grid stability. And so there's some good news so far. A fragile power grid isn't just an infrastructure issue, it's a national security threat. For those who undermine the nation's grid with green agendas to force grids to retire stable power reduction for unreliable power generation with Chinese solar panels must be held accountable. So what they're saying is this group of states here, you can look at them and see, have pushed for green energy and put so many regulations on other industry that, well, they're retiring them or not building them. And so now we're going to have a shortage. This article is from Zero Hedge. It's by author Tyler Durden, titled America's Largest Grid Operators Will Warn of Summer Power Outages. You can go read that. It was dated Saturday, May 10th. So if you want to go check that over on Zero Hedge, it's pretty interesting. All right. So over the weekend, Wendell says, I think the government is cutting back on plants to make electricity. Wendell, that was happening under previous administrations because of regulations and demand for new green energy. In fact, I had to just trade in it wasn't mine, it was Mrs. Sportcat's electric car. We traded in the scooter because she couldn't make it from Atlanta to Knoxville without making 4 stops in a scooter. And I joke, it wasn't a scooter, it was a Volt. It was a tiny car. But at any rate, so because of things going on here, we were trying to help the environment, ditch it and get a, gasoline powered one. All right, so over the weekend, my son felt this one because he was stranded in Florida. I would have just stayed. Another major airport hit with massive delays after system outages and equipment failures at Newark and Atlanta, both at the same time. A third American airport experienced massive delays this weekend in the latest string of air travel setbacks. Planes at the airport in Austin, Texas were delayed for an up to hour and a half Sunday because of chronic understaffing at the FAA's Air Traffic Control Center, according to a KUT news source. Austin Bergstrom International Airport has more than half of the air traffic controllers the government says it is supposed to have. As of January 2nd, only 32 of the required 60 positions were filled at Austin's airport, staffing records show. This follows major problems at Newark, again, which has been hit with massive delays for 2 weeks. The incidents are the latest in a long line of disasters that the Trump administration blames on antiquated FAA systems. Yes, they are old systems if you've ever seen them. However, the MAGA, I love how they just want to make that, fired hundreds of air traffic, that's been debunked, fired hundreds of air traffic controllers in February, that's been debunked. You can go fact check that. And radar screens were dark at New York City area hub early Friday during a close call, nearly became a mid-air disaster. All right, so they closed down some things because of a near disaster, and then they had I almost call it a power outage, but the system went down. Separately, Hartsfield-Jackson had to issue a ground stop on Mother's Day due to equipment failure. Nightmare delays in the Texas capital lasted for about 3 hours Sunday until the overwhelmed air traffic controllers were able to get a handle on traffic. Incoming flights were impacted by the staffing, the FAA confirmed to the Austin American-Statesman. Even before the weekend problems, the local Democratic congressman slammed the Trump administration's failure to adequately staff traffic control towers. Last time I looked, they just started mid-May or mid-April, and I know from having to get a government job, it takes a lot longer than people realize to get a government job, especially one of this security level. So they don't put that in there. With current air traffic controller staffing at under 50%, Austin has one of the most severe shortages in the country, she tweeted last week. To improve safety in our skies, it must be better prioritized by the FAA. The Trump administration's new plan fails to adequately deliver for our region. Understaffing by the FAA is just one of several big issues plaguing Austin's airport, which has been unable to keep up with the demand for the growing city around it and increased demand from tourists wanting to visit the popular destination. This location has seen scary near misses where aircraft narrowly avoided collision. Okay, well, no, I'm not going to play the video. Basically, what you're saying in this is they're blaming President Trump for the shortage, but he inherited 50% shortage. So you can't have your cake and eat it too there. You can't have, it's one or the other. And FedEx cargo plane can be heard urging a Southwest airline pilot to abort his takeoff to avoid crashing into each other in February of 2023. Oh, so we're going to talk about a near miss in 2023 and blame another administration. Okay, this administration. Planes came less than 200 feet of slamming into each other if they were both cleared to use the same runway on a foggy day. Lack of critical safety technology and incorrect assumptions by air traffic controllers were later named as the cause of the near disaster, according to the NTSB. Passengers at the Lone Star Airport are often subject to delays simply being dropped off at the airport, as facilities are too small for more than 21 million travelers who move throughout the airport each year. Construction to avoid taxiways for planes and expand terminals is currently underway. However, it won't be completed for 5 years. So this happened in February 2023, and they want to blame MAGA. Okay. Somebody fact check that for me. All right. Chris says, I don't fact check. I just take whatever the media tells me is gospel, and I get outraged as I see the best course of action. Well, yeah. Yeah. And Wendell, I disagree. Electric vehicles will never be viable unless you don't want to go anywhere. I have said for years, if they went to NASCAR, no, wrong button again. If they went to NASCAR 20 years ago and said, all right, look, what we want is we want an electric car that will go 200 miles an hour for 500 miles. There'd have been a bunch of redneck engineers go, oh, hell yeah, we can do that. But instead, we left it to another country to determine it. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think NASCAR could have figured this out already. All right, so this comes to us from Zero Hedge, once again, from Tyler Durden. This guy's informative. Fake news narrative of empty ports and empty shelves suffers a spectacular implosion. It was about 1 month ago when stocks tumbled. And by the way, they're way up today. Why is that? Economists rushed to catch down to the sliding market by doing what they do best, chasing prices, in this case lower, by slashing their economic forecasts, mostly Goldman Sachs, which was mocked at the time and correctly predicted it would be about a month before these same economists made a unrecession their base case once stocks rebounded. Hey, we're way up today, I hear. All right, so somebody from Zero Hedge wrote, will be so slightly awkward when all the banks who made recessions their base case this week make an unrecession in 1 month. Well, it took less than 1 month for this forecast to come true, and now that stocks have erased all of their post-Liberation Day losses, one of the most closely followed people on Wall Street, Goldman Sachs chief economist Jan Hatz, said on CNBC May 2nd, just weeks after declaring that a recession was his base case for 90 Minutes, that most recent information is certainly consistent with the economy is not going through a recession right now. Wow, we're not? Of course, the concurrent surge of the Atlanta Fed real-time GDP tracker from negative 3%, which was dead wrong, to where GDP actually printed at 2.4 in the second quarter, which cemented a non-recession case base. Increase the technical definition of wait a minute, I read that wrong. Because the technical definition of a recession, 2 consecutive negative quarters meant that quarter 2 GDP set to print well in the green. The earliest the U.S. could be declared in an official recession was sometime early 2026, when the quarter 4 2025 GDP would come out worse. Would come out. This was devastating to the liberal wing of the economic profession, not to mention the mainstream media, all who had decided that a Trump recession was imminent, and so they had to pivot something else that would trigger a, quote, daily doom and gloom narrative. That's what we want to avoid here. That something was the hypothesis that with the trade war between U.S. and China raging, it was only a matter of time before West Coast ports were emptied, as no Chinese counter ships would come to the U.S., and the result would be a COVID-like panic scramble for products. Go get your toilet paper amid a historic inventory destocking. Ginger does not want to run out of toilet paper. It was as if the media turned on a dime, with the looming recession narrative suddenly left in the dust. It was instead replaced with a story after a story about a looming port crisis that would grasp until COVID like empty shelves everywhere were across America. Okay, she is barking at, so if by any chance I go off the air, we're having a severe thunderstorm here, and she's barking at the wind, and you may be able to hear it in the background. It's up there. Trump tariffs hit the West's busiest port, with traffic down by nearly a third, blasted Sky News. Why U.S. ports are emptying out before the tariffs hit harder, asked rhetorically Inc. magazine. Empty store shelves will be coming sooner than you think, cried Bloomberg. Unrearingly liberal talking heads and Reuters never want to miss an opportunity to amplify the anti-Trump narrative, no matter how credible, echoed the shipping volume will plummet by 35% next week, LA port officials say in a CNBC interview. Wow, that's getting loud. It's getting really loud out there. I guess y'all can hear it. You get the picture. But that was just the beginning, because the liberal media was only just starting its fear-mongering campaign. Now, remember, there were other shows, other YouTube shows that they kept talking about, go get your bread, milk, and your toilet paper. We didn't say that. So it's fear-mongering campaign to get Americans to panic, rush out, and start stockpiling toilet paper once again. In other words, the independent press was hoping to cause the very catastrophic outcome it was warning about. In other words, they were trying to force this, and there were several podcasters they have red little screens on YouTube. You can go look at them with alert, danger, warning. You can go check them out. Nowhere was this more evident than MSNBC, where anchor and former douche, I will not use that word correctly, bond salesman Stephanie Ruhle, no longer an expert and intimately familiar with Under Armour and especially its CEO, but now full-blown trade guru, declared that Donald Trump has told the cargo ship, hold on, rephrase, let me quote this correctly. Donald Trump has been told, look at the cargo ships coming into Seattle and the port of Los Angeles. Pick the port. Those ports are going to get fewer and fewer ships with less and less cargo. Would you like for me to bring up the map? And unless he turns this around 3 weeks from now, you'll walk into a store and we're going to have a COVID-like supply chain issue, and Trump is looking for an exit. Well, But as it always happened, it was CNN that finally took this broken telephone narrative to its absurd conclusion when the media outlet became the butt of all propaganda jokes, declared that 0 chips from China are bound for U.S. California's top ports. Officials haven't seen that since the pandemic. An article by CNN business and political correspondent Vesnes Urich, who, like NBC Rule above, is now a full-blown expert in naval commerce and logistics, as a quick scan of her latest articles reveal. So up until this point, we stayed away from the idiotic discussion, which merely demonstrated how little understanding so experts actually have nuanced and complicated topics as trade and global commerce. However, CNN's idiocy was the last straw. But before we go there, a quick look at what has been taking place. First, regarding the claim that the West Coast ports have seen a sharp drop in inbound traffic, there certainly has been a modest decline in February and March inbound, but a decline from a near record print in January, which in turn was the result of inventory restocking ahead of what most retailers would be a trade war. After all, Trump had made it clear about a year ago that he had every intention of restarting the trade war with the world, and especially China, and only someone watching CNN would be surprised by the recent sharp spike in tariffs, a move which incidentally was never meant to be permanent, but was strategy meant to inflict maximum pain. By the way, it's been suspended for 90 days, and get trading partners to the negotiating table. In any case, went too far there. In any case, the total inbound traffic to California ports shorn below is hardly the apocalypse the liberal media has been making it out to be, and even Reuters discusses this in an article, and they cite it here. Then, addressing the topic of imminent shortage, this was another fake news narrative meant to spark panic. Didn't we just talk about this? These shows try and get you to panic. I'm not telling you not to prep. I'm not telling you not to be prepared. I'm telling you not to panic, is what my message is, and resulting in the outcome the media was warning about. Because if they want this panic, wouldn't their shows be off the air? Why? I don't know. It's great for MSNBC and CNN, and of course China, which begs the question just how much ad dollars and our sponsorships have these media outlets received from Beijing and China companies in recent months? That's an interesting question. As the following charts from Douche Bank demonstrate clearly what has been taking place in recent months, and why we are now seeing the reverse is record pre-buying and excessive imports, which according to Douche Bank has led to precisely the opposite outcome from the one NBC, MSNBC, and CNN have been blasting. There is excess inventory in the supply chain, enough in fact to last for weeks, if not months, assuming a full-blown collapse in global trade, which of course would never happen absent a COVID-like shock. And remember, they wanted that too. Additionally, if and when retailers end up liquidating these billions in excessive inventories they accumulated just for this contingency, the outcome would be wildly de-inflationary and hardly the inflationary shock so many experts predicted. That's the topic of another post I'll get to eventually. Getting back to the favorite topic of dropping cargoes from China, it wasn't just that the countered the popular narrative, so did Standard Chartered Steve Englert, who wrote last week, the lurid headlines on the drop in cargoes from China may be misleading. That's because, as we noted, the volume of laden cargo was now being, you will never hear this on CNN, the current level is about on par with much of 2023. In fact, Englander said that the current pace has the low-end normal over the last couple of years. Again, hardly the apocalypse Kevin Plank's favorite media body portrays it to be. There's one more thing you would never hear on NBC or CNN is that half of the early May pace of shipping to the U.S. is maintained through end June, and cumulative amounts shipped H1 2025 would be higher by 18% than H1 2023 and 5% lower than H1 2024. So this year, tonnage shipped to the U.S. is 40% higher than in 2023 and 9% higher than in 2024. As noted above, the Englander observes U.S. importers may have an inventory buffer until tariffs are negotiated downwards. Taking a step back, if only the benefit of CNN and NBC readers, the big picture is one that even the U.S. were to lose all of the Chinese imports, an outcome which nobody anticipates, as it would destroy China's economy. As Reuters has admitted last week, the outcome to the U.S. would hardly be devastating. Yes, prices would rise, but overall, the U.S. would be able to handle it. This goes back to Hank Williams' songs, "A Country Boy Will Survive." Here again is the Englander explaining why. U.S. imports in China are about 1.6 of the U.S. GDP. In value terms, if inbound cargo stays at early May levels, it would be 85% of 2023 levels. In volume terms, at 67% of 2024. So the import volume shock would be 0.25% of the GDP. In the gross domestic product is what the GDP is, if you don't understand that, relative to 2023 and 0.05 relative to 2024. And keep in mind that there may be substitutes from elsewhere. Well, we did go to India, so there may be temporary delays as U.S. importers figure out the particularities of dealing with new tariffs, and shipping may be down temporarily because importers stocked up ahead of the tariff implementation. There's little precedent for this kind of tariff shock, but our judgment is that the U.S. economy can handle it. We agree that disruption is likely from tariffs, that any benefits are uncertain, but we don't think the U.S. economy will fall off a precipice because of the shock of this magnitude. All right, so we're just going to end right there reading this one because it goes on and on. But basically, they're pointing out, and I have shown the map multiple times of the cargo ships coming in. They have not slowed down by a tremendous volume, and your stores will still have what they need. So, all right, we've went way too long on that article. I should have cut that one a while ago, basically, since it was fake news. But this comes to us from military.com. Chris says, I appreciate all the informative graphs, factual information, and calm, reasoned discussions, but I think I need to remain outraged and kicking rocks. Chris, please do, by all means. So I found this interesting. This came to us from military.com, and it shows that the military is watching everything. It's not just our phones. They watch everything. An alternate history channel on Reddit is gaming out a shockingly realistic second U.S. Civil War. Alternate history writing looks at the what-if scenarios. What if the Soviet Union won the Cold War? What if the Roman Empire never fell? It's not just interesting, it's escapism, and it allows the reader to look critically at the world they really live in and reflect on current events. Popular alternate history stories have become major television shows or movies. Philip K. Dick's 1962 novel, The Man in the High Castle, is set in an alternate timeline where an assassin killed FDR and Germany and Japan won the World War II. The book was later adapted into an Amazon Prime series. One of my favorite books was by Harry Turtledove, Guns of the South. I highly recommend that book to read it. You can find it at most bookstores and probably Kindle. But one Reddit's alternate history subreddit is posting scenarios asking, what if the Soviet Union intervened in Iran, or what if the U.S. plans for the Middle East was implemented after World War I? The usual posts garner a handful of likes or comments, but a new alternative history timeline is making the rounds with interactions in thousands. The new timeline from Redditor George Squarishington looks like an alternate world where someone really could hack the 2024 presidential election both sides contested the results of. I thought that only Republicans did that. And America fell into a dark civil war. All right. So he asked that his name not be used, but because of the sensitive nature of his story, maybe he must have an important job, but he looks at what a modern civil war in the USA is like. So that come to us from military.com. I can't get the whole article, but you can go over on Reddit and take a look at it. It's kind of scary how somebody in an important job somewhere has, well, looked at it. All right, we're going to skim through some headlines real quick because we got a lot of weather news to report, especially here in the South. Nebraskan is jailed for a lightsaber attack. What? Police defendant 25 struck a neighbor and her 7-year-old. May 9th, a Nebraska man is behind bars on a pair of felony charges for allegedly striking a female neighbor and a woman's 7-year-old daughter with a Star Wars lightsaber, according to court records. Investigators allege that Aiden Orion White, 25, why do they always give their full name, first struck the girl while she was playing with other children in the front yard of her Auburn home. When the child's mother, Sandra, she's 37, confronted him, he yelled at her, "I'm not in the mood, get back in your effing house," while then allegedly charged her wielding his lightsaber. He struck her on her right arm or shoulder, and reported sheriff's deputy told both Lunsman and her daughter said they were in pain following the lightsaber. Well, it's supposed to kill you, the lightsaber strike. Two neighbors told cops they witnessed White hitting the victims with the lightsabers, which investigators describe as a higher quality device, approximately 3.5 feet long, constructed of metal and thick plastic. The lightsaber, a deputy noticed, could cause significant pain in the injury when used to strike an individual. During police questioning, he reportedly confessed to the attack, saying it was unacceptable behavior for which he wants to apologize. While cordial with cops, White would have profane and angry outbursts that include him blaming the victims for a rise in his rent. He also warned of future problems for Lunsman and her child. The lightsaber has been seized by the police department. White, seen above, was charged in a criminal complaint with 2 felony assault counts and is being held on a $50,000 bail. Maybe Darth Vader will come bail him out. A man tries to rescue his dog and surf off California's deadliest beach. A man died Thursday. We always want to save our furry friends. A man died Thursday after rushing into perilous waters of San Francisco Ocean Beach, fully clothed in an attempt to rescue his dogs, authorities said. While the dog made it out of the ocean alive, the man was pronounced dead at the hospital. Northern California beach is notorious for its strong rip currents, powerful waves, and icy water conditions, and has earned it the reputation of California's deadliest beach. Thursday's incident unfolded shortly before 2 p.m. when the San Francisco Fire Department received a call that a man had collapsed in the water at Ocean Beach near Lawton Street after jumping in to try and save a dog. 2 women on the beach saw the man struggling and pulled him out of the ocean, fire officials said. Crews from the National Park Service Ocean Rescue Team arrived within 2 minutes and began CPR. Fire personnel took the man to the hospital in critical condition where he later died. The dog made it to the beach independently without serious injuries, fire officials said. His identity has not been released and death is still pending. The death investigation is still pending. I have seen that story numerous times, how people try and save their pets. The pets make it out, but they don't. Concerns raised with trends of guns found in Albuquerque schools. This comes to us from one of our alert followers. Albuquerque, New Mexico, there are concerns of students caught with firearms. Albuquerque public schools. The latest involves a 12-year-old, caught with a gun inside his backpack at a community collaborative K-8 school on Monday, May 5th. Wow. Wow. And I've seen this video circulating the internet where the officers had to use a beanbag on children to get the real gun out of their hands. Wow. It's scary that there's nothing more dangerous than the idea of a gun at school, a gun and a child on school campus with a gun. It's happening far too often with the kids getting a hold of these guns. We're seeing the whole gun glorification amongst young people. Kids now see a gun as a trophy. They want to get that trophy. Then you mix it with social media. They sit there with a pose with a gun like this. They put on social medias. Wow. So yeah, this video circulated the internet, and the drone helped And they ended up, it was two kids playing with a gun, and they were both very young children, and they had to use a beanbag to basically knock the gun and the child down. Did I lose power? What's going on? How hard would it be for it to swim from Alcatraz to freedom? Well, they've asked people who done it. Trump announced this Sunday he planned to re-open Alcatraz, the notorious island prison, just a little over a mile off the California coast near San Francisco. Critics began to question, just how inescapable, I should still be on, it really was. From 1934 to 1963, there were 14 documented escape attempts at Alcatraz involving 36 inmates. I'm sure you can hear that. Whoa. The only prisoner known to have survived was John Paul Scott, who made it from Fort Point under the Golden Gate Bridge in 1962 before he collapsed from hypothermia and exhaustion. He was found there unconscious and returned to the prison after being treated. All right, so we're going to skip through this because I want to get to weather because it's getting pretty severe here. The average swimmer can swim about 1 mile in 30 minutes, which is 2/3 of the distance to the shoreline. So apparently it's not an easy feat. Former collegiate swimmer Riley Gaines swam from Alcatraz to shore with a group of Navy SEALs. Well, now I'm impressed with that. In July 2024, and she told the Daily Wire that she prepared by swimming the bay in the day before without a wetsuit. Freezing, and this was in the middle of July. No way you'd survive in colder months. Awesome. I did not know that she had done that, so awesome. That's a heck of a swim. Can we make her picture bigger here? Because, well, I just want to make her picture bigger because that's an incredible feat. Wow. So, yeah, Riley Gaines did it with Navy SEALs. Impressive. He says, let the force be with you. Nobody is addressing such as young children having absolutely no respect for police authority. Well, there is that too, but I got to be good or I'll get canceled. So I got to be good, Chris. Let's see. Minnesota is the most financially literate state was one. Teenagers with mental health disorders spend an extra hour on social media. That's another headline. Is Biden's family deliberately screwing with Democrats? Go over to Zero Hedge and check it out. Come to your own conclusions on that. Yeah. Breaking news before we came on here. Trump is signing an executive order to put a price on drugs. Basically, whatever the least, how do I word this? The least price that any country pays, they have to give to us. In other words, if they sell it to China for a penny a pill, they have to sell it to us for a penny a pill. And then apparently, I don't understand this story whole yet, but apparently yet the federal government was given a gift of aircraft to replace the aging Air Force One, which kind of concerns me. The pontiff asked journalists to use communication as a tool for peace. I got to say, I like some of his things, but I kind of disagree with him trying to appear to be a world leader. He wasn't elected. And we know celebrities think a lot of themselves, but they have a spirit tunnel, which basically is people on either side of them plotting and cheering and chanting them on before they go on to the Jennifer Hudson show. You can check that out. But you can see by the pictures here that, well, they think highly of themselves. So Chris said, I know, that's why I said it. Well, Chris, trust me, there are so many shows I don't run with daily, or stories I don't run with daily for reasons. All right, so we're going to jump into what we normally do. We're a little bit behind schedule, so we're going to talk fast. Pay attention for those of you in the back, especially the slow ones. I'm not talking to you, Wendell. All right, so FEMA Operations Daily Briefing. This is the same briefing that is given to the President of the United States, except we don't get the secret mojo shit. On Monday, 12 May of 2025 at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is when they presented this. There are no new incidents or operations and no new declarations. And, well, as you can hear above me, heavy rain, flash flooding in the southeast mid-Atlantic, critical fire weather in the north and central plains. I'm just going to skip this part here because I'm going to cover this in just a few minutes. But basically, this trough is sat there, and it's going to cause us to have some big booms today. There's potential for excessive rain from pretty much Washington, D.C. to Miami, with Virginia and North Carolina getting the brunt of it. Basically, east of the Appalachia to the coast is going to bear the brunt of excessive rainfall. It could be very significant, up to several inches. And then there's also a fire weather outlook we're going to talk about in the Northwest. It's going to be increasingly elevated, and then we'll see it change today and tomorrow because of the heat. Nothing new in space to report, and no significant impact. So we'll just jump out of that one. We'll get back into that one a little more here in the next coming days since we're running short on time. All right, so here we go. Here we go. We got to go back here. We got to start on Monday because, as you see, what you don't normally see there is they got us into Tuesday. Remember, I talked about this last week. They changed it. So press had to show up at 8 a.m. at the White House today, 9:30 at the Joint Base Andrew, and at 9:30 a.m. the president held a conference with the Secretary of Health and Human Services. That was about the drug prices. 10:35 a.m. the president is departing White House for Base Andrews, and from there he lands at Joint Base Andrews at 10:45. 10:55 he departs Joint Base Andrews, which is in Maryland, for Royal Air Force Mendenhall, and then he will arrive there at 6:45 p.m. local, which is 11:45 p.m. local in Mendenhall, England. And there will be out-of-town camera traveling press pool with him. 7:45 p.m., the president departs the airport en route to King Khalid International Airport, where he will arrive the following day, which takes us into Tuesday. So we got to start at the top and come down here. 2:45 a.m. This is Eastern. He's going to arrive in, I believe that's going to be Dubai, King Khalid International Airport, and he will depart there for a Ritz-Carlton at 3 a.m., which is Eastern time. It's 10:10 a.m. local time there. So the press pool will be traveling with him. 3:40 a.m. he gets at the hotel, and then at 4:50 a.m., so he's going to be there an hour, he departs there to go to the royal court, which is 11:50 a.m. in Saudi Arabia. And then he will get there, and he's going to be with his out-of-town press. He's going to participate in a state visit with the royal Saudis. And then he's going to depart there and go back to the Ritz-Carlton at 8:05 a.m. Eastern time, or 3:05 p.m. local time, Saudi Arabia. And once he gets there at 8:10 a.m. Tuesday, that's tomorrow, our time, 3:10 their time, is when he will get there. But only going to be there a bit. He's off again. And the media is going to be exhausted. At 9:40 a.m., he's departing there. So he's going to be there for, 5 minutes? Why even bother? He's going to have a press conference, I guess. He's going to participate at 9:45 a.m. in the U.S. Saudi Investment Forum. And the only people that can get into that, because it's out of town, is pre-credentialed media, which most are with him, but it will be international media. And then at 11:20 a.m. Tuesday a.m., he's going to depart there, back en route to the hotel. And I should ask Ross about this, but it's my understanding when the president travels out of country, there is a person that is responsible for collecting, how do I want to word this? But the presidential pee and poo, because we don't allow it to be in other countries' systems. So maybe that's why he's going back to the hotel so often. I don't know. I need to ask Jurgs about that. So 11:25 a.m. he gets back there. At 12:50 he leaves there again, which is 7:50 local time. And then from there, which pre-credentialed press media, In Saudi Arabia, he's going to once again depart, headed elsewhere, but he'll go back to the hotel. He's going to be all over Saudi Arabia. And the press is going to, they're going to have to keep up. He will be able to sleep in the traveling fortress, but local media will not. Our media will not. They'll be sleeping in their chairs. All right, this is one of the important ones I do want to bring up that, all you other shows missed this one, and this could have been important to your doom and gloom. The DEFCON warning system public statement. Why we have raised the alert to level yellow. The DEFCON warning system raised its alert status to yellow DEFCON 3 on 9 May 2025. It's not a decision we take lightly. Our mission is to monitor global threats relating to nuclear conflict and provide timely, accurate information to the public without unnecessary alarm. While there is currently no imminent nuclear threat, the rapidly escalating conflict between India and Pakistan has increased the potential risk of nuclear engagement to a threat level we believe warrants this heightened state of awareness. Now, there was one show, Monkeyworks, that caught one of our nuclear aircraft airborne loaded. We want to take this opportunity to explain why we made this decision, what events led to our increased concern. A rapidly escalated crisis over the past several weeks tensions between India and Pakistan have sharply escalated. It began in April of 2025, the 22nd, when a deadly terrorist attack in an Indian-administered Kashmir resulted in the deaths of over 24 civilians. India blamed Pakistan's based militant groups for the attacks. While such accusations are not new to the region, this particular incident was met with an unusually strong and immediate response. In the first week of May, India launched a series of retaliatory military strikes under what it called Operation Sindoor. These strikes targeted alleged militant bases in Pakistan and Pakistani-controlled Kashmir. Although India described these as precision operations, the reality is that they represented a serious escalation of hostilities between the two nuclear-armed nations. Make sure this isn't a message telling me I'm off the air. Okay, it's not. Well, okay. All right, it's not. In response, Pakistan launched an extensive and series of counterattacks over the course of May 8th and 9th. Pakistan conducted what can only be described as unprecedented drone and missile strikes across northern India. In fact, one of the missiles launched from the drone landed and they found it to be of Chinese origin. It was intact. It never went off. It was just like a big rocket we play with in school. Kids were probably playing with it. In unprecedented drone and missile strikes across northern India. Indian Defense Forces reported intercepting hundreds of drones and several missiles, but significant damage was still done. Air combats incidents also increased, with Pakistan claiming to have downed multiple Indian aircraft during these encounters. The level of direct military engagement between India and Pakistan had not been seen in years, and the pace of the escalation was alarming. Both sides publicly declared their intention was to conduct military operations, with Pakistan even stating it is prepared to target high-value strategic sites it deemed to further retaliate if necessary. Well, there is a ceasefire. Although one side's already claiming the other side has broke it. But on May 10th, after intense diplomatic pressure from international community, and I can tell you there have been reports that our president, vice president, and Mark Rubio were up all night intervening in this. The ceasefire was a welcome development. We observed that it came only after several days of dangerous escalations that pushed both nations to the brink of a larger war. They had already called in the nuclear commanders. Even as the ceasefire was announced, we are receiving reports of isolated breaches. Firing was reported along the international border in Jammu just hours before the ceasefire took effect. These incidents highlight the fragile nature of the agreement and the deep mistrust that exists between both sides. Our assessment is that while hostilities have temporarily paused, the situation remains highly volatile. Forces on both sides are high alert, and any incident, intentional or accidental, could reignite the conflict. It is precisely this kind of unstable environment that historically led to miscalculations and unintended escalation. I have said for years that World War I or World War III will start because of a scared young soldier making a decision that starts a much larger conflict. I have said that for years. Why we moved to DEFCON yellow? We want the public to understand that raising our alert level to yellow, DEFCON 3, does not mean nuclear war is imminent. It does, however, indicate that we believe the risk of nuclear conflict has increased beyond normal background levels. And here are the key factors behind our decision. Escalation without clear off-ramps. Prior to the ceasefire announcement, neither side showed meaningful signs of de-escalation. In fact, each day brought new military actions and threats of further escalations. This kind of trajectory is concerning when dealing with nuclear-capable nations. Unprecedented military activity. The scope of drone and missile attacks combined with air and ground engagements marked a significant departure from typical border skirmishes. The use of advanced military technology and direct strikes on strategic targets raised the stakes considerably. Nuclear posturing. While neither nation explicitly threatened the use of nuclear weapons during the crisis, we observed key warnings. These included the public discussion of potential strikes on high-value targets, the movement of military assets that historically precede higher states of nuclear readiness, a fragile and unproven ceasefire. Despite the current ceasefire, both nations remain highly distrustful of each other. Forces remain mobilized, and political rhetoric remains heated. In our analysis, the possibilities of renewed conflict in the near term cannot be dismissed. Fluid and unprecedented situation. Finally, we note that the situation remains highly fluid, even on the ground, are more changing rapidly. We believe that the higher alert gives the public the earliest possible warning in the event that circumstances worsen. Okay, key things to report here. And it's funny, anti-doom and gloom. I'm the only one reporting this. You watch. They will tomorrow or tonight. At DEFCON Yellow, we are not advising the public to panic or take immediate or drastic action. Something I want to reiterate to my viewers. We do not want that. We are anti-doom and gloom here. However, we are recommending that individuals begin reviewing their personal emergency action plans and become familiar with the basics of preparedness. This includes knowing the location of nearby shelters and safe locations, reviewing family communication plans in case of emergencies. And that reminds me, I want to sidetrack for a second here. Everybody should take their cell phone out today and write down the most important numbers, whether it's your mom, your sister, your mother, your brother, your cousin, whomever, on several pieces of paper. Keep one in your wallet, keep another in your desk, keep another one in your dresser drawer. In case we lose cell phones and you have to go to some alternate device way of communicating, you will have their numbers. So keep that in mind. Keep that. And plus, there are also ways of texting online where you may not have cellular service. You may be able to text online. So at any rate, ensuring that basic emergency supplies, that means food, water, first aid kits, are all available. I highly recommend everybody get an Israel tourniquet. You shouldn't have one. You should have multiple. Okay. And once again, preparedness is not panic. It is a responsible step to take when global conditions are uncertain. Our goal is always to provide the public with as much time as possible to prepare the unlikely event the situation deteriorates further. In conclusion, the DEFCON warning system is committed to providing objective, timely assessment of global threats related to nuclear conflict. Our decision to raise to alert level yellow reflects a careful evaluation of the facts on the grounds, the behavior of the parties involved, and the historical precedents for how such conflicts can escalate. We will continue to monitor the situation closely and update as necessary. Should conditions improve and stabilize, we will adjust our alert level accordingly. Until then, we believe it is prudent for the public to remain alert and informed. All right. So, like I said, we are anti-doom and gloom. Don't, get all scared, but be prepared. Be prepared. All right. And so, as we discussed, it is at level 3, yellow. Scary. Very scary, actually. We've covered why the watch and why it changed. The cities in areas of the world haven't changed since our last few shows. The most recent update is the geopolitical climate. The United States is continuing to carry out strikes on Yemen. I do not know if that's correct because I thought we had caused the ceasefire. We recognize the commitment. Okay, well, I don't have to read all that, but I thought that had stopped. May 10th, the Civil Air Authority of Pakistan reopened its airspace to all flights after the ceasefire was reached with India. And then India-Pakistan analysis, ceasefire violations, conflicted overview, but it appears that it's still going to remain peaceful. So, but within hours of the ceasefire, there were violations reported. People just like shooting back and forth to each other. So yeah, this goes on to say you can get all this just by Googling the DEF CON. I'm not going to be able to read all this because of time. But you can go back and look over the weekend that this all is based on the India-Pakistan aggression towards each other. So, go check it out for yourself. We're currently at yellow DEFCON 3. This is at defconlevel.com. Please, please, please make yourself aware of things. In Australia, you're listed for your definition is probable. And for the UK, your definition is substantial currently for terrorist attacks. All right, let's get to something I would say a little more fun, but it's not. Chris says, presidential waste collection and transportation would be great to see listed on the federal budget. That's a good idea. All right, so we have this whole little pocket of cold air out here on the west. That's going to bring some mixed precipitation and some of that stuff that has the nasty S word in it. But here on the other side of the country, we're going to get heavy rain and flooding. And see, this has changed. You can see there's no threat level for us for intense storms. But if you've been listening, we've been getting them. We're getting hammered here in the south. This low is just spinning like a cyclonic event. And it is just going to coat from the Keys all the way up to Washington, D.C., inland to the east side of the Appalachia, back down through central Georgia. And basically, the rain is just going to continue. Over the next couple days, we anticipate that while it is still drawing moisture from the warm Gulf air, it's going to start moving to the north-northeast as this cool air wedge starts to come in, which is good news for two reasons. Aside from the fact that Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Nevada, Utah, parts of California, the upper elevations will see mixed precipitations. It's cooler air, which is needed, but we're going to see this move. And then by day 3, Wednesday, which we'll talk more about. Come on, go to day 3. There you go. They're not showing it, but the newest models I have seen have called for up here in Maine some severe weather, but that is still going to be tapping that Gulf air, and it's going to be moving back to the left, which is unusual. And most times it comes from the west to the east, but because the cyclonic event spinning up the coast with all that warm Gulf moisture and air, it's going to spin back to the west coast where it's going to meet up with this high. All right. So let's look here real quick. We'll go to down under because we've ignored you guys for a little bit. Let's get what the current live radar is. And right now it looks like on the East Coast, there's some scattered showers, which I believe it's supposed to be pretty tropical up in the north with some scattered showers. And over on the East Coast, relatively mild with some precipitation along the shoreline. And really not much to report out on the West Coast in Western Australia. Maybe some little tiny showers in Central Australia. Let's look at what they're anticipating for precipitation. Pretty much the northern section, northern tropics, a little bit, but not much. And then down along the East Coast, some spotty showers. Tasmania, you're going to remain pretty high with an occasional shower. And your temperatures right now, currently, this is Fahrenheit. Tasmania, Hobart 45, Sydney 62, Brisbane 60. Jump up to the northern tropics where it is 78, coming back down on the Western Australian side. It's 76 in Broome and 61 in Perth, while in Adelaide it's 52. So it's cooler in the south than it is into the northern tropics. And the wind is expected to continue in that same manner of a west to east, bringing warm tropical air from the north across the top half of the country. All right, let's go up to the US of A and see what current temperatures are. Oh man, it's okay. All right, it's 2:35. We're gonna fly through some of this, guys. We're not gonna make it to a lot of the other stories today, but that's okay because I want to keep you all informed on the most important things. All right, currently Washington, D.C., it's 78. We jump down to Atlanta, 77. I'm 74 here in Knoxville. Columbus, we only need to know it's 72. Burlington, 74. That's hot for them up there. And we're going to zoom out a little bit and see the hottest area of the country is usually Tampa, but no, Texas is winning the prize with Odessa coming in at 86. 93 degrees in Phoenix. Woo, buddy. Out on the West Coast, 55 in Seattle, 52 Medford, 57 San Francisco, LA 71. So it's cooler on the West Coast, and that heat is being kind of wedged here in the middle. Bismarck, 90, Rapid City, 89, Omaha, 82, Kansas, 82. All right. So let's jump and look at some maps here real quick. Let me make the screen larger. All right. So this is what they're calling their TourCon. And is basically pretty much straight up Alabama and across to the other side of the Appalachia to the coast. And then pretty much lower section of Florida is the potential for tornadic activity. It's not expected to be relatively high, but there is that potential. The wind today, well, as you heard overhead, the wind in the south pretty much from Kentucky, Tennessee line straight down diagonally across the top of Alabama, all of Georgia and the lower section of the Carolinas. It's going to be a little windy with a little section of Atlanta being the windiest. Hail damage or hail reported. God, please no more in Atlanta, but no, it looks like Atlanta is going to have the potential for more hail. And the hail could be from central Tennessee down through Alabama, Georgia, into the Gulf of America out to the Atlantic. All right, that was the NATO cast. The National Weather Service has it slightly different for tornadic outlook, and theirs has it as South Carolina and portions of Georgia and all the way down the 95 corridor in Florida into the Keys is where they have theirs. They're calling for the highest winds to be from pretty much all of Florida straight up through Georgia, the east side of the Appalachia, small section up there in the north, maybe around Bismarck. And their hail outlook with NOAA is different from the NATO one, is they're only calling for a slight chance, and it's still, once again, over Atlanta. Pretty much from Chattanooga down to Jacksonville, over to Montgomery, and down is where theirs is calling for the most potential for hail. We'll look at the frost and wind for today. We'll look at the frost for today, frost and freeze. Well, it looks like the biggest chances are out in Oregon and Washington, Idaho, where your temperatures could get down to well, as low as 32 in sections of, I'm going to bet that's probably the Big Bend area and Rose section of Oregon. And that's just a guess. With over in the Northeast, why is it always the Northeast? Vermont, New Hampshire, and portions of northern Maine can see the low 30s. All right, so that is your frost and freeze advisory. We're going to move over to the next one. The wind, I'm changing this wind map because the other one is not reliable anymore, Chris. Not the globe, but the other one. They're showing that the jet stream is making this big swoop. So the most windy conditions on the West Coast will be coming up over Northern California, extending up into, well, almost the Dakotas, but that's going to be a big swath when that comes off the coast. We see down here in the Gulf of America, and we see this section coming up over the Florida Panhandle, going up to pretty much east of the east side of the Appalachia is where it's picking up that energy and pulling it. You can see even really off of the coast of Texas, pulling that back up and around. That's where the wind is going to be highest. In the south, which would pretty much be Georgia, but I think that's already been proven wrong if you could hear what's going on above me. And then up in Maine, there are sections up in the northeast that are going to be quite windy. All right, let's hop up to. All right, so this is the heat risk. Columbus people just got lazy. They just didn't, it wasn't being updated. I updated it today and it said April 30th. Well, it doesn't do me any good. Remember, it had been April 1st. It was updated April 30th. So I was like, no, forget this. All right. So while this is important, up in the Dakotas, it's really hot. And that's a problem in that section of the country. Minnesota, it's really hot. Aside from the Dakotas being extremely warm, the fire conditions are, well, elevated there. So be careful. Plus, they're not used to such extreme heat up in the Midwest area of well, not Midwest, but the Northwest. And we can see that pretty much from Montana over to, well, almost Maine, they're going to have some minor heat conditions, but that little swath as that air is trying to break that wedge down in the Gulf. And you can see up the coast there, all of Florida, Georgia, the coastline of both Carolinas, and into Midwest or mid-Southwest Virginia and DC. It's a yellow, meaning that it's warmer than most times of year, but that little circulation area still got that coolness. This wedge up here coming from Seattle, just picture it coming down as a high. It's going to be pushing this. It's going to be pulling this down, and it'll change that for the Dakotas over the next couple of days. It will not decrease the fire danger for about 48 hours in the Dakotas. So if you're in the Dakotas and there's some fire danger up there with you guys, let's go scan real quick through weather warnings because I want to pull up the other maps. Let's see. Florida, Georgia, rip current, Texas flooding, Maryland test message there once again. We have a small craft advisories along the coast. Texas heat advisory. Not seeing anything here. Alaska marine weather statement. That's probably for the cold. Tennessee, a flood advisory. That's for me. That's because of the heavy rain you could hear behind me. Alabama, flood advisory. North Carolina, flash flood warning and flood advisory. Let's see. Flood warning, Alabama. Special weather statement. That's for us. For moderate conditions. Well, you heard them. They were overhead. Utah, wind advisory. New England. Is that New England or Nebraska? Nebraska. Right? Red flag warning. He's Nebraska, right? Alabama, Florida, rip currents along the coast. Georgia, along your coastline on the Atlantic side. Air quality alert for Minnesota. Flood watch for Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia. All right, so that's pretty much got the crux of that one. Let's look at I had updated right as I left. Let's look at the current weather map and see what it says. Come on, update. There we go. This is brought to you by the Georgia Emergency Management and Homeland Security, and they update for the entire. See, when you zoom in a little bit here, let's go back out some. See, if you can picture right here over Nashville down pretty much Birmingham, that area is where this has been spinning and pulling that Gulf moisture, and it is hammering Florida, well, and East Tennessee, where I am right here. Yeah, that's right over my head. That big thunder boomer you heard right over my head there. And that's extending out to the east. Basically, you're looking at areas right now under the gun are Charlotte, the Outer Banks, down in Columbia, not really, but in the Carolina, Charleston, down there, the northeast Georgia mountains, they're getting hammered right now. If you go upwards a little bit, it's just heavy rain in Charleston, Lexington, Cincinnati, Columbus. You get some spotty showers. I just thought I'd tell you guys so you knew. Central of the country on the backside of this storm. Memphis, you're a little bit stormy. St. Louis, you're getting a little bit of it. And of course, there's a flash flood warning down into Louisiana, the lower grounds. Let's hop out west and see what the radar looks like. That cold front is slowly coming in, but currently it looks like it is just rain. I don't see any of the bad stuff. If you notice as we go across here, red flag warnings, pretty much all of the Midwest, not Midwest, but the Northwest. Blowing dust warning. I didn't have, that's a new one I've seen. Air quality alert, Minnesota. So yeah, it's been ugly up there. Let's minimize this and go to the next one. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to move quick. I want to get to everything as fast as we can and get to the weather news, but that other stuff was, I thought, much more important. And Denise says, I have a solar cell phone charger. It's great to have. Mrs. Sportcat made fun of me. I bought a fan because of my brain disease. I have an internal ringing in my head all the time. So I have to have background noise. In fact, sometimes while I'm doing the show, it's driving me nuts because it's so quiet. But I have to have background noise. So I bought a electric fan that you charge up. Well, on the base of the electric fan, not only is the battery, but it's got a charger that you can charge USB items and up to 2 amps. And I forget how many volts it is, but pretty much you could run the fan for 24 hours and charge your cell phone. And I bought one for me, and she's like, well, I'll take one, but I doubt we'll ever need it. Well, turned out over the weekend, that's what got her through the weekend. I said, didn't make fun of me now, did you? All right, we'll zoom in on this storm with a lot of electrical activity. As you can see here, these thunder boomers that were moving through us, they're just a little bit to my northeast right now, not by a whole lot. In fact, I'll probably get the next little wave of them here anytime. The next highest electrical activity will go down to Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Wendell. It looks like there might be some up, where is that? Fort Payne. It looks like they're in DeKalb County in Alabama. It looks like they're having some storms. And we jump over here to Louisiana, and we see, where is this one? Holmes County. That's where the next storm is, down in Louisiana, into the southwest of it, and it's moving in a easternly direction. I don't see any on the west. Well, nope, take that back. There is some electrical activity. Reading, you have a small cell over there, and then what do we got up here? Is this Yakima? A small storm up there. So doesn't have as much intensity. They typically don't get the thunder boomers the way we do. We look over here on the coastline in North Carolina, Jacksonville, North Carolina. There's a cell there. Scooting down the coast, I saw some activity off of the Space Coast, Titusville, and then off of the Miami coast between Miami and Cuba. Or is that Nassau? No, it's Nassau. Between Miami and Nassau. Actually, there's some, if you go further down in between the States and Cuba, there's a cell down there as well that could wrap around a little bit. So zooming out, that is where your most electrical activity is currently in the United States. We'll go down under and see if they have anything going on down there. We should also, when we're no electrical activity there, we should also look and see, since our president's traveling, I'll have to find out where these places are that he's going and see what the weather is there. It looks as though it's stormy in certain areas of Ireland and back over here in the UK, France and Italy, and then down here to Libya. No, that's not Libya. Where is that? No, my geography in the No, well, it may be Libya. In the Middle East is not that great. So you'll have to forgive me. I've traveled there, but it's been a minute. So, all right. We're going to refresh this for power outages. I'm surprised that wasn't me. Still, once again, California, 15,258. Utah, 6,261. These are customers without power. Nevada, 5,361. Oregon, 3,859. Texas, 3,699. And Mrs. Sportcat and family were without power for good parts most of the weekend in Atlanta. So, yeah, if the trees would stop falling on my house, it would be great. It would just be great. Let's take a moment to take a deep breath and put on your little Tai Chi music, if for just a moment, to enjoy the big, beautiful globe with the AI-generated wind. And we can see how that slow-moving little section right here, just sitting there ever so slowly, going to be moving up to the northeast while this one comes ashore. And then look down at Australia, see how your wind is down there. Look earlier like it was going pretty calmly. Yeah, from east to west, nothing real. Maybe down on the southwest coast, a little windier than anywhere else, but it doesn't look too bad. I don't see any cyclonic events. And then I looked earlier, and I don't believe there was anything in the Atlantic or the Pacific. But this does resemble a tropical storm that's pretty much going up the East Coast right now. It really mimics a tropical storm, although it's a little early for that. All right, the drought map. Chris says you didn't have trees falling on your house till Trump took office. Yep. Damn it, Trump. Your big, beautiful trees keep falling on my house. Every time I think I'm going to get it fixed, another one falls. Mrs. Sportcat told me, she said, I'm not calling any more damn contractors for another month. She's been harnessed with the responsibilities of taking care of restoring cable, internet, and power, and replacing siding and roofing. And she's, because of the way this took, because every time she call it, all right, you just gotta fix it. Then she has to call a week later, you gotta fix it. She said, I'm just gonna wait. So this is our drought map. Currently we see that in the southwest Texas, it's probably the worst for you guys. Arizona over towards you, lower California, Southern California. Florida, the drought map for you next week should significantly change. If we went back and looked at the drought map previously, you would have seen that in the south it was much higher, but with this storm you can see that it'll be dropping some. And then up here in the north, or in the northern Midwest, we're going to see that change over the next couple days as the storm moves across the country from the west. It should bring down the fire level threats, and you should get some much needed rain. And then don't worry, it's been unusually rainy in California, which is a good thing. They need it. For this time of year, especially, it's been unusually rainy, but we're going to see that moving down into Nevada, Arizona, and Texas. But you're going to have a high heat to deal with for a little bit. Allergy maps, not too bad. I was able to go out over the weekend. It's code green. Most of the code red is the Midwest with the tree pollen. We'll look at the breathing index. It looks like pretty much most of the country is, well, it's yellow where I am, but most of the area, except for on the coastline, Midwest, the little spot there, Arkansas, right? Yeah, Arkansas. With some high pollution in back to the Midwest in Nevada, that area we talked about earlier with the warnings. And well, in fact, here it is. I got a map ahead of myself. Where is this? This is in Nevada. It's beyond bad. It's hazardous in this section of Nevada. Crescent Valley in Nevada, to the west of Carson City, northwest of Carson City, to the due west northeast of Carson City, due west of Salt Lake City, that little area of Nevada. Very, very, very unhealthy air. Down here along the Texas-Arizona border, very poor air quality for you as well. And most of the sections of the south are pretty clear because of the winds coming off the Gulf of America, which will be making its way up to the north. So pretty much center part of the country, it's not too bad. All right, we just got a few minutes left. Fire map, smoke map. We saw the pollutants. Smoke is not a big issue. Most of the fires you will see. Let's just go right to the other one, because this one doesn't show the prescribed burnings. Most of the wildfires are on the East Coast, and they're making good headway. The ones in the Appalachia are almost out. Of course, they say that and they'll break fire lines. We start worrying up here in the code red areas in the Dakotas. That's where it's going to pick up, especially since Canadians' drought and wildfires have increased up there. But right here currently are all the ones on the East Coast, in this little section where you see here in Texas and Arizona, where in the desert they've had some breakouts. Those are newer fires. Chris, you got me with that comment. Let's see. Let's look at this real quick. This is the pollutant dust and smoke map. And as you can see, we're not really affected by anything too badly from Africa or South America. Most of the pollutants are just from the smoke and the pollen in the United States. And it's in the deep south, it's pretty clear, but you can see it swirling around to the east and then north of us, where the pollutants are the worst. Over in Australia, Central Australia, the smoke from the fires there, and on the western coastline down along Sydney to Melbourne is where a lot of that smoke and pollutants are, and it'll be traveling to the west, or to the west in an easterly flow, but it's going to be relatively mild in the central part of the country. Around the fires in the northern tropics, you could expect all of that smoke to be pushed out to sea. So it'll be a little smoky, but not too bad. I forgot to look and see, and I didn't look on the other map how it's going to be for the Gulf of America people on the oil rig, because I do know we do have one or two listeners. It looks like it's going to be a pretty smoggy day for you guys and gals. Let's see, space prediction. We are predicting that there'll be some slight disturbances. I don't think the aurora is going to be moving. We just got a few minutes left here. Pretty much in its northern areas, it will not jump down into the lower 48. We'll leave this for tomorrow. We'll pick up here on this, but the measles outbreaks in the United States have increased to 1,001. So that's something we need to talk about. We need to talk about the other things that are breaking out. Of course, we can break into all the other stories about events going on across the world. And Kilauea has been the most active recently. And the most recent earthquake was Puerto Rico, which is a 3.3, was the most recent one. And all right, I'm just kind of skimming along here. We see that Kilauea, it's code orange right now because it's pretty much, it went off last night, erupted. But apparently they're saying it has paused the eruption. And then we'll look at the crime and things going on across the country tomorrow. See if there's any major fires. 1434 Burlington, Rhode Island, a two-alarm fire. All right. We look here at all the air traffic up above the U.S., and this is all the military flyers at the moment. We could probably, if we were quick enough, we could probably, I don't know what time he was traveling, but we could probably catch one of, well, there he is right there. One of those two vessels is carrying the president currently over the Atlantic. And if you notice, they're side by side. There's probably military planes that are also there. I'm going to assume this guy flying behind him has probably got all the things he needs to drive around in and support. And I'm going to guess these are probably these are also carrying supplies. What is this little guy? It's another C-130, so they're all carrying supplies. And that's a Learjet traveling behind him. Interesting. It's a Marine Learjet. Okay. So at any rate, he is currently off the coast of Newfoundland, headed over to the Northeast in Europe. That's where, as I said, one of these two, they're side by side, so you don't know which one he is, which is for good common sense. And he's probably surrounded by planes that we'll never see and aircraft fighters and tankers that we'll never see, but they're up there with him, protecting him. So he's currently up over the northern Atlantic. All right, guys and gals, I am about to run out of time. We'll take the last thing and look at what we normally do. Bitdefender, this shows where all these cyber attacks are. Red are attacks, yellow, orange are infections, and white is spam. And as you can see, they're lighting up the United States from Asia and Russia as usual. And we're not sending many outbound ones. I don't look for that to change due to where our president is traveling over the next 72 hours. Up next, David Beckmeyer. You can catch him if you stay right here on Yerg's Radio, Rainbow Radio, Radio X Australia, and their affiliates. Me, I am here on the YouTube channel, the Para Are Normal. 3 different words, Para Are Normal, and guys with a Z, or you can Z as in zebra, or you can search out the Sportcat shows. Over the next couple of days, we're going to be changing up our hashtags and our advertising a little bit, trying to get some of those podcasters that are over there in the doom and gloom to come over here and talk with us. We want to have some fun with them because they still schedule shows the next days, as I will schedule a show tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern time until 3, midnight till 3 in Australia. And you can also catch me if you're in the U.S. on the Thin Line Rock Station from noon till 2 tomorrow. I will be playing records through the magic of technology. I will be in 2 places at once. Sportcat will have been duplicated. How about that? All right. Well, I'm going to sign off for now because I know David Beckmeyer is anxious to get up. Please stay tuned for him. We'll catch up with other things. I apologize that I didn't get up to things as quickly as possible, but it was a long weekend with lots of activity. And so we tried to stay on top of it, but hopefully we did a good job. You guys can give us a thumbs up. Let us know your approval. Please come over and find us on Facebook as well. We have our own Facebook group, the Sportcat Daily Gazette. If you want to see something published, a joke, a cartoon, a news story, whatever, send it to me. If you want to get in touch with me, links are in the description. Everybody have a great day. The boss Shock is leaving the building, and hopefully I will not get any reports from Mrs. Sportcat of tree damages. Everybody have a great day. I will see you tomorrow. Or you may hear me tomorrow if you allow me to tickle your ears. One or the other. Have a great day or a great morning. Good morning to you. Wait a minute. I need to start signing off like I do on my other show. So here we go.
In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
That's right. In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, good night to you. I hope you're safe. I hope you're secure in whatever part of the world you are in at the moment. Have a great one. Sportcat is out of here.